shows that there is greater, awareness and consciousness about, national security, which is, which I always say that it is not just something which is to be left to the armed forces alone or to the tri-services. I think, in today's circumstance where the domains are not just land, sea and air, it is also cyber, cognitive, social space, all that. So therefore, it is something which is moved on to, I would say, whole of government and perhaps whole of nation. And I think it should finally be a whole of society approach. So every individual in the country has to be, aware of it. And I think dialogues like this, I think, will work to make such things happen. Yeah, I feel, national security issues need to be discussed more and more by, at the national level, I would say at the citizens level, etc. Because everyone has to have a stake in what is happening in our country and the security aspects of it.
So first of all, sir, I'd like to thank you for gracing our platform. Matter of great honor and privilege for us, sir.
I must also thank you for this opportunity to come here. The first time I'm coming to this, PhD chamber.
And I hope not the last, sir. We'll keep on troubling you, sir, in the future also. Ladies and gentlemen, Navy is something that I personally feel, and these are my personal comments. Navy is something that has defined power for thousands of years. It's not something new. For thousands of years, ever since man started the process of either trading or fighting wars on the seas or on water, Navy has been an extremely important part of our civilizational heritage. But what we have seen lately is that the government of India has really pushed towards modernizing the Navy. We've seen an aircraft carrier being launched. People are talking about another one which is in the works. And there are so many other capabilities that are being built as far as the Indian Navy is concerned. The Chanakya Forum team is highly privileged to have the Chief of Naval Staff. And the topic that we are going to discuss today is Indian Navy in the 21st century, evolving maritime threats. So may I start with your permission, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the first question, sir, that in the recent past, significant financial commitments have been made by the government of India, especially for Indian Navy for the purpose of capital asset acquisition, sir. What are the emerging threats that have enabled these financial commitments?
Firstly, I want to tell you that, the financial commitments that you saw in terms of shipbuilding projects which have happened is part of the capability development process. It is not something which has just happened just because of a particular threat or so. In fact, there has been delays in getting our contracts through earlier. So the government had worked to make it happen. So that's how we got a couple of these, 3 of these contracts through in quick time. So shipbuilding, that is a part of capability building process which has been on for some time. Coming to the threat aspect of it, I would say that we are now in a highly contested present and moving towards a fairly uncertain future. What we see is a web of threats, I would say. Conventional, non-conventional, as well as many other threats which we have not foreseen earlier. So it's a kind of a web of threats that is emerging. So talking of conventional threats, we are aware of our adversaries, adversary nations and their capability development and so on. The Navy's role is to protect, preserve, and promote our national interests wherever they lie, especially in the maritime domain. So we assess what are the threats, what are the challenges, and what are the maritime interests that we need uh, to pursue. And we therefore see that on a daily basis, there is a certain amount of contestation that is happening at sea. It is well below the threshold of conflict, but the possibility of full-fledged war can now be ruled out. So, in a sense, if you look at it right from the Roman days, the essential uh, uh, requirement of national security, stems from that saying, "Sivi pace para bellum." That means, if you want peace, you must prepare for war.
Yes.
So, therefore, preparing for war remains a core activity for the Navy, and we therefore look at the combat part of it. So that is the conventional threat. When you talk of non-conventional threats in the maritime domain, there are plenty. It's, I would say, piracy, armed robbery. Even yesterday we had a piracy incident on off the coast of Yemen, where we had nine Indian crew and 2 armed guards on board. They were able to be rescued with the help of multinational forces which are present there. But we had coordinated, the activity, as well as facilitated the treatment of one of the guards who got injured. So I would say piracy, armed robbery, IUU fishing, that is illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, smuggling, all sorts of arms, drugs, human migration, all these activities, and they know no borders. So at sea, it is it's a common threat for almost all the countries in the region. So this is something which is an ongoing thing. So and further in our area, we are prone to natural disasters, and humanitarian assistance requirements also come up at very short notice. And a typical example is Sudan. Everything was going perfectly fine, and all of a sudden we had this conflict there, and we are required to evacuate our nationals. So this non-combatant evacuation operation is another thing that has been happening rather frequently. Another, I would say, all-pervasive and all-encompassing and an intrusive and a silent paradigm that is happening is in 3 respects, I would say. One is the emergence of niche technologies, which have got application both in the civil as well as the military domain, which can be harnessed by both state as well as non-state actors to progress threats. Second is the cyber part of it. Cyber is an enabler. We are all hooked onto it. We have to use cyber. It affects every aspect of our life, but it brings in a lot of vulnerabilities. And the third and the most important part in this intrusive paradigm and silent intrusive paradigm, I would say, is the aspect of weaponization, I would say, of the cognitive domain. So, there is the ability to use social media or, various types of tools, techniques, and to target, people, and to shape the cognitive domain by, various inimical actors. So, when you look at the overall threat that is there, that is emerging, it is a complex web. It has got all traditional threats, it's got non-traditional threats, which I talked of in the maritime domain, as well as these silent and intrusive, paradigms. And therefore, we factor all this in making our assessments. We do our planning accordingly, and this feeds into the capability perspective planning and the capability development and the force structuring part of it. And I would like to say that it is being done in a joint manner. We also assess as to what are the capabilities that are available in the nation with various agencies, and then we see what are the gaps, and then what is it that we need to fulfill. So whatever falls into the domain of the Navy, that is what we take on. For example, I would just say, we have very close linkages with agencies like the NTRO, the three services, the other two services as well, and see what is it that they can, bring to the table, and what is it, where is the gap, and wherever the gap is identified, that is what we take forward as the, into the capability development process purely for the maritime domain.
Sure. So my next question to you is something that has been hotly debated, and especially in the media, sir. This is about the third aircraft carrier, sir. And it's also understood that the primary threat that we face today in terms of our adversaries is China. So what is this, sir? They have 3 aircraft carriers, we will also have 3, then they have 5, we will have 5. Or they have 10 nuclear submarines, so we will have 10. What is the end game, sir? Is it going to be writing checks after writing checks? So where does this stop? What is our end game in all this, sir?
I would say that we are not looking at matching platform to platform, or aircraft carrier to aircraft carrier, or submarine to submarine, etc. That's not the intent. I just said earlier that navies primarily look at national interests, and for us, protect, preserve, and promote national interests in the maritime domain. That is the guiding principle. And our national interests are spread far and wide in the Indian Ocean, be it our exclusive economic zone, or offshore platforms, or ships, which the merchant ships which carry out trade. In fact, as I would say, as Mahan had said, the need for a navy rises with the need for peaceful shipping, and dies with it. That means if you don't have any trade, if you don't have any merchant shipping, then you don't really require a navy. So, to ensure security in the maritime domain, you need to have assets. Now, coming specifically to what you are talking about the aircraft carrier, I would say the aircraft carrier forms the centerpiece, or the asset around which the carrier battle group is structured. Now, it is a tremendous capability to have. It brings in the ability to project air power at sea for air defense. It brings in a lot of roles that you can achieve, whether it is sea control, whether it is power projection, control of the sea lanes of communication, destroying the enemy's war waging potential. So there is a lot of it that, and it's a unique capability. It cannot be brought in by anybody else. A main difference between land-based air power and what carrier battle group brings is the mobility that it has got, the versatility, and it is a persistent air cover that it provides for the rest of the fleet as well. So, and it has got a mobility of about 500 nautical miles, roughly about 1,000 kilometers in 24 hours. It can be in one place and then move rapidly and deploy it somewhere else. So it's a unique capability. That is why if you look, among the nations that have an interest in maritime power and to protect their maritime assets, they do have a carrier. About 5-6 of the leading navies do have a carrier in their inventory. Now you may ask me, what about a choice between aircraft carrier and a nuclear submarine, paisa, all those things. Each of these bring their own capabilities, and they are not either or, I would say. If you look at the Indian Navy, we are trying to become a balanced force. Nuclear submarine brings a different set of abilities. It brings stealth, the ability to stay for very long underwater without the need to surface. And when it forms part of the nuclear triad, then it again it's I would say not easily detectable and cannot be targeted easily. So therefore, it is, I would say, a more survivable part of the triad as well. So a nuclear submarine brings a different set of capabilities, whether it is sea denial, and similarly, we have a good mix of conventional and nuclear submarine. So therefore, with that, you are able to provide a different set of capabilities and missions that it can achieve. So, if you ask me, do we need more carriers, or should the carrier be offset against a nuclear submarine? I would say we need to be a well balanced force. We need to be a navy that meets the aspirations of the nation. We are the fifth largest economy today, and it is said that we may become the fourth largest economy in a couple of years, and we are heading towards being the second or the third largest by 2047. So what does it imply? When you say that you are becoming a very large economy in the world, that means you are exporting and importing goods. And when you are exporting and importing goods, it has to come through the sea. 90% of the goods by sea, by volume, have to come through the sea, and about 68% of our goods today comes through the sea by value. And in the foreseeable future, I would say that transportation by sea will remain the most efficient. Studies have shown that between road is to rail is to sea, the ratio is 1 is to 10 is to 100. That means for the same amount of energy, you can transport 1 kg by road, 10 kgs by rail, and 100 kgs by sea. So that is the economics of scale that you achieve when you transport through the sea. So therefore, so long as we are becoming a larger and larger economy, our trade goes up, and therefore I would say even our GDP goes up, our budget goes up. I'm sure that the defense pie will also go up, and therefore there will be a need to protect our interests, and the need for more and more assets to pursue our national interests. As they, it's quite evident that we will have our diaspora in various places, our industries in various countries, various locations. And so how do we support them, in times of crisis or, things. So I would say that a couple of good books that those who are interested can read. One is The Splendid Exchange by Jay Bernstein. And another one I would say is by Bruce D. Jones called To Rule the Waves, which has been recently published. Gives a very, very clear expose on how the importance and how maritime domain and the maritime power and what you get from the sea, leads to the growth of nations.
So the CDS was here, and in fact, he gave the keynote speech, and he spoke very passionately about Atmanirbharta. The ability of an indigenous arms or weapons manufacturing ecosystem in India. And he says that this is one of the missions that he has taken up, and he spoke about it. My question to you is, sir, Indian Navy solidly stands behind Atmanirbhar Bharat. Do you think that our manufacturing is strong and robust enough to deliver platforms that can address evolving maritime threats? Do you think the local defense manufacturing, the organizations that do it, are they strong enough to deliver on that?
See, the Navy has been in the forefront of Atmanirbharta, and we have been pursuing this over the last at least 5 decades. We started in 1962 or so with a small, patrol boat, and since then we have evolved, making small LSTs, then landing ship, bigger, medium-sized ones, then corvettes, frigates, destroyers, and finally we culminated in the submarines, and now culminated in the commissioning of the aircraft carrier. I feel that this thrust towards Atmanirbharta has come at the right time. We need to see examples and the lessons that we have learned from the Ukraine war. Ideally, this should have happened many, many years back, but the thrust of the government towards Atmanirbharta is absolutely right. We need to have we need to have strategic
autonomy, I would say, in this sense. And also, this is a great economic opportunity for us to develop our defense ecosystem, defense industries, so that not only can we make for ourselves, but we can also help friendly foreign countries. And as our Honorable Prime Minister has said, the self-reliance in the defense forces is very important for India of the 21st century. And we are convinced in the Navy. We have been building ships, as I said, for a long time. And any ship that is constructed has got, while under construction, I would say it's got three components. Broadly, when you look at it, to float, to move, and to fight. So in the float component, we are at 95%, I would say. The entire steel is indigenous now, DMR 249 Alpha and Bravo. The steel has been developed in country by DRDO, Medani, and Navy and Steel Authority of India. So every single warship hereafter will be built with steel that is made in India. In fact, we have now gone on to make another submarine grade steel as well, DMR 301. Which will facilitate in making submarines which can go even deeper, probably, and more stronger steel. So since steel is steel, and the the components that are involved in it for construction of the float component of the ship and submarine is now completely available. So it's about, I would say, 95% there. When you talk about the move component, that means the propel and to propel the ship, various systems, control systems, shafting, propellers, whole lot of things are being made in India. I would say we are about 65% there. What is lacking is the main propulsion, be it diesel engines. We have been manufacturing diesel engines under license, but now we are moving on to make these in India. So there's a make case that has been approved for, I think, a 12 megawatt diesel engine. We are looking at gas turbines being made, manufactured in India. We are looking at gas turbine generators being manufactured in India. We are looking at electric propulsion, which is the next generation propulsion. Also, the larger motors, etc., which are required, being developed in India. So this is as far as the move component is concerned. And in fight, we are somewhere around 55%, I would say. The long-range missiles, etc., good part of the sensors are being made in India. I would say, you look at BrahMos, the gun ammunition, say sonars, torpedo tubes, torpedoes, they all, being made in India. But there are certain areas where, especially in guided weapons and things like that, where we are still dependent on some radars and so on. So the effort is to achieve as close to 100% as possible in the years ahead. We as a Navy have given a commitment to the national leadership that we will be a Atmanirbhar Navy by 2047. Just as the national leadership is saying that we will be a fully developed nation by 2047. We have given a commitment that we will be a fully Atmanirbhar Navy by 2047. So that is what we are working towards. So I am convinced that there are adequate policies in place, initiatives in place. That's a roadmap for the armed forces. The industry has also got incentive for making in India. So we are hoping that we'll have a Make in India, made for India, and niche technologies that are made exclusively for India. So that is what we are looking at, and trying to encourage the defense industries to make for us.
Sir, the fourth question is slightly interesting because I'm speaking about the Pakistan Navy, sir. And say Pakistan's Navy has moderately developed over the past decade. The Chinese Navy has been growing by leaps and bounds. So there are two adversaries, East and West, generally, sir. Now, my question is, how does Pakistan fit into our threat perception profile, given that PLA Navy ships and submarines dock at their ports frequently? So whether it's Gawadar, whether it's Karachi, so we have them going all around and docking there very frequently. So how does the Pakistan Navy fit into our threat perception profiles?
Actually, PLA Navy ships have been docking into various ports, not just Pakistani ports alone. They have been docking. They have been visiting Bangladesh. They have been visiting Myanmar. They have been visiting Sri Lanka, and of course Oman and various other countries. So they do visit. It's perfectly fine that they can visit. But as you said, the visit to Pakistan and possibility of using their ports, etc., is something that we are seized off and we keep a watch on. Pakistan Navy, I would say, between I would say Pakistan and China, they have common strategic interests, and therefore countries which do have a common strategic interest, they will align either both economically as well as in terms of military requirements, etc. They have been getting a lot of support for their military hardware. In our assessment, they are likely to transform into a 50 platform force in about 10 to 15 years time. There are 8 new submarines which are under construction. They got new corvettes, new frigates. They're all being inducted and various stages of construction, etc. So they are modernizing their force at a rapid pace, and from where they are currently about 20 to 25 platform force, they are moving on to become a 50 platform force. A lot of maritime patrol aircraft have been inducted or are in the process of being inducted. So they are modernizing at a good pace. As far as China is concerned, I would say in the last 10 years, they have commissioned about 148 ships and submarines. So quite a large number, and the construction is still on. In fact, the aircraft carrier, the third aircraft carrier construction is on, and which is much larger. And also a lot of new destroyers, larger destroyers, and so on. But while this construction and the commissioning is on, we feel that it will, sort of plateau at some point in time. It cannot continue forever at the pace at which it goes because of various other constraints. So while I would say numbers has a quality of its own, quality also matters. As I said, we are keeping a very close watch on the developments in the Indian Ocean region. We put in a lot of effort on surveillance to develop our MDA, Maritime Domain Awareness. Or we know, or we at least the effort is on to exactly know who's present and what are they up to, okay, on a 24/7 basis. So that is our job, which is what we pursue. We deploy our aircraft or UAVs. We have the HALEs, ships, submarines. So we keep a close watch on all the developments that is happening. So there is a large presence of Chinese vessels, I would say. About at any point of time, we have anything between 3 to 6 Chinese warships in the Indian Ocean region. Some obviously at the close to the near the Gulf of Oman or in the anti-piracy patrols. But there are also those which do come into the eastern part of the IOR for shorter durations. And there are these Chinese research vessels which are ever present in different numbers. Sometimes there are 2, sometimes there are 3, sometimes there are 4. They come for durations, for undertaking research activities in international waters. And there are a large number of fishing vessels which are always present in the Indian Ocean region. So you find there is a large presence of Chinese units in the Indian Ocean region. So we try to keep track of it, and then we refine our plans and actions that we are required to take. And this also feeds back into the capability development process and force structuring to tweak the type of units or capability that we need to develop.
So my last question to you is, sir, that how's the Indian Navy adopting new technologies like artificial intelligence? And what initiatives are being taken to partner with institutions of excellence and private entities for research and development?
So we, we say that our motto, I would say, is to be a combat-ready, credible, cohesive, and future-proof force. So in terms of future-proofing, we need to look at the technologies that are likely to come in. So as you said, AI, say directed energy weapons and space-based applications, different types of sensors, multifunction radars, hypersonic missiles. So BDA. So these are all new things that we are looking at. So we have created, I would say, a slightly future-looking organization. We call it the NIIO, Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization. It basically encourages innovation. It acts as a sort of a organization which reaches out into the industry, to the startups, to MSMEs, and generates ideas and technology which are of use to the Navy. So one of the things we had done last year in July was to conduct a seminar called the Swavalamban Seminar. So in this seminar, we had said that we will give out 75 challenges to the industry and to the startup to develop technology or products that will be of could be inducted into the Navy. And it was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister. And what a response we got for the 75 challenges. We got more than 1,100 suo motu proposals as well from the industry. So we went through all of that. It took some time, and we had shortlisted about 135 startups and MSMEs to take various initiatives forward. And since then, we had signed numerous contracts. In fact, we are just signing the 100th contract in a few days from now. Two technologies are already getting inducted. One is a firefighting bot and one is a firefighting compound. And there are various other prototypes which are likely to be completed before August this year. We have set a timeline of 1 year. So it's been a great success. We link up with closely with the Government of India and the MOD initiatives like IDEX and the TDF, which is a Technology Development Fund. So and also we have a endeavor which we have named as Sprint, that is supporting pole vaulting in R&D through IDEX, NIIO and TDAC. So that is the acronym for this Sprint. And this has paid dividends because we are looking at technologies which we induct at that through the MSMEs, which can be a game changer, which can be inducted into our platforms, and which will help us in in fighting the battle in a completely different way, in a transformative manner. So that is what we are looking at. As far as AI particularly is concerned, we have started an Indian Navy incubation center for AI in Bangalore. They are also now currently running 38 projects with the industry. Since Bangalore particularly has got a lot of software firms there. They are engaged with various startups, etc., to how to use AI, not just for maintenance and logistics and things like that, but also in the op role. So a number of use cases have been made to harness AI, and they are working on it to see how it can translate into technology that can be ported onto our platform. So while we are looking futuristic in all these things, we are also looking at our HR to be transformed into, I would say, not tech enabled, but I would say tech infused sort of warriors at sea. So this is how we foresee that we should be able to look at the future.
Thank you very much, sir. So, questions from the audience?
Yeah, sure.
Now the Navy Chief will take 2 questions from the audience, please. And yes, please.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Sure.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Vaibhav Gupta from MKU. My question is, does the Navy actually, have a roadmap of leapfrogging and, giving adversaries a good punch, and how this roadmap can help us as Indian industry to help the Navy, to leapfrog and in terms of technology and capability, so that we can also align to the vision of Navy in their indigenous effort. Thank you.
We have a capability, technological requirement roadmap, which has been shared. It's not been fully put in the public domain, but it's available for, for genuine industry partners of our country. Roadmap for the unmanned systems was unveiled, was in fact approved by the MOD in 2021. And that is again available with us again for distribution to to genuine industry partners. A lot of work is happening on that. Some technology like say hypersonics and difficult technology, I would say, like laser, high power laser and things like that. We are working through the DRDO because we feel that is a technology. Those technology require a lot of investment. It may not be feasible for the industry to really put in that sort of resources. So there we are working with the DRDO and those sort of things, whether it is hypersonic missiles or anti-ballistic system, ballistic missile systems and like that. So they are working on that. But rest of the technology, as I said, whether it is developing a 127 mm gun or a follow-on for the 76 mm gun or for torpedoes, we are working with industry. All this, there is a very clear roadmap which is available. So you just have to link up with our NIIO organization and take it. So we can't publish everything in the open domain. That is the plan.
Thank you very much, Admiral sir. I'm Wing Commander Bakshi. I have a question to ask regarding our joint operations, what we are talking of. Yes, it's a very common subject, joint operations. But when we talk of terms of jointness, there has been jointness at one time where our pilots were flying with the Navy, and I have also trained the naval pilots in the air-to-air firing at Kalaikonda. And there are a lot of commonality of equipment, fighting equipment. Is there any thinking of advancing this thinking, putting in the policy, exchanging equipment, especially with pilots, more pilots, fighter controllers being placed on aircraft carriers, etc., and common radar equipment, and there are a number of weapon systems which could be common. So, is there any thinking of advancing this policy and strengthening this policy so that there can be better use of resources at an optimal level?
Yes, sir. I would say, definitely that is the way ahead. And the HQ Ideas has been tasked with this thing of looking at joint, JSQRs for equipment that we are inducted are getting inducted. For example, the software defined radio, which is being is a very important component of our net-centric warfare that we are talking of. Common waveform so that it can be ported into and used by jointly by all of us. Basically, first I think the first requirement that we should be able to communicate together. So joint waveforms have been developed already. We're going to have these software-defined radios. It will take probably a little bit of time, and every single equipment now that we are developing or procuring, from of course we are looking at largely procuring from India itself, will see whether it is applicable for more than one service, and that is the way we are progressing. For example, I would say the Navy is looking at the twin-engine deck-based fighter being made in India. It will have a lot of commonality with the Air Force, next generation aircraft that is being made. A lot of equipment will be similar, but exact aircraft may not fit into a aircraft carrier. So therefore, there will be certain differences. Similarly, what we are looking at as a DBMRH or deck-based multi-role helicopter, that will be a variant of the helicopter which is being looked at for the Air Force and the Army in the same category. So we are definitely looking at commonality so that maintenance becomes easier. In fact, when you're looking at the UAVs and HALEs and MAILs, etc., it is going to be a common platform which can have sensors fitted which suit each service. So that is how we are looking at when you're looking at training. Even on the carrier, we've had Air Force pilots flying with us. But you're aware that it takes a certain amount of time for training and becoming ops on that. So we've had, I think, in the squadron at least one or two pilots over a long period of time. So that is how. And now, in fact, we had our fighter pilots training at the integrated, the training area of the Air Force. No, now they have in Gwalior. There is a integrated firing training area. So they've qualified for the first time. We got I think two or three pilots who got qualified.
Thank you, sir.
So, last question, sir.
Yeah, time for one, no?
Yes, just one last question, sir.
I'm Brigadier Ratan Kumar, sir. The Navy Chief used a very interesting term, the weaponization of the cognitive domain, sir. We all kind of reckon that there is something like this that is now happening, and it is happening all the time. Certain unpopular steps or orders had been issued in the past when I was in service in the Army regarding use of the social media, which I suppose is one of the weapons probably you have in mind. What strategies does the Navy have to protect its sailors from the deleterious effects of these weapons of cognitive domain, sir?
It is. It's not an easy task, I can tell you. It's a big challenge. We got our policies on the use of social media, and certain things have been banned, and it's not. And of course, a lot of apps have been banned nationally as well. But there is no other option but to try and educate your personnel, because these are all individual. I would say the rights of an individual. He keeps a phone. We don't permit a smartphone within the security premises, which itself raises issues of morale and things like that, because we have our sailors staying on board a ship, which is a combat platform, and therefore he doesn't have access to social media, and his own communications get affected and so on. So we are trying to find ways and means to ease this problem, and it's a problem not just for us; it's a problem for all navies worldwide, because today's generation are hooked on to instant communication, and they cannot live without social media. So, the use of social media to affect your mind, shape your opinion, we have seen it all over happening in our country. Various examples are there. So we do not have any specific strategies that are laid out, but we have been working on educating them. We have something called a divisional system where we have every 11 sailors is under an officer who's supposed to know him well and interact with him and mentor him and so on. So the constant effort is to talk to them, mentor them, and talk of the ill effects of social media. I would say in many cases social media is really antisocial. So tell them about the effects of this and try and educate. There is and of course so this is one of the challenges which is there. There are no easy solutions.
Right, so,
That's all?
yes, sir. I think because then there'll be too many questions, so we'll be at it for another hour or so, sir.
No, I'm okay.
Would you like to take one last question, sir? Okay, I said last, but I'll say last once more. This is the absolute last question.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is regarding the Chinese spy ships that have recently anchored in Hambantota, Sri Lanka. How we are dealing with it and how real is the threat regarding security?
See, it's all these research vessels and they all have ability to track and have ability to collect electronic signals and so on. So while they are free to operate in international waters, when they operate close to our areas of national interest, then it becomes a challenge. So therefore, we have to work with our neighbors, with our friendly foreign countries to convey the challenges. We keep a close watch on all the activities, and we have our ships which monitor them very, very closely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav.